Welcome to another episode of How to DragonCon. My name is Kong. I will be your guide. Today, I wanted to share my thoughts and overall review of DragonCon 2022. I will say ahead of time, this is a little different from my normal videos. It might be a bit of a ramble and a rant, so please bear with me. Definitely feel free to use the little timestamps to skip ahead. And if you have anything that you want to share, please feel free to share it in the comments below. I'd love to hear it, but most importantly, if you have feedback, especially something constructive, a suggestion that you have, I encourage you to reach out to the con themselves. So go to DragonCon's website and find the contact form to give it directly to the people who can actually do something about it. An alternative way is to go back to the app. If you attended any events or panels and you have feedback, whether it's good, if you really like something, if you want them to come back, if you want that speaker to come back, please rate that event highly and make a comment about it. Or if there's one that you did not like, definitely tell them that as well. So hopefully that they can either diminish or remove that event and replace it with something better. As for my thoughts, I'm going to start with a list of cons. Definitely no pun intended, because this is going to talk about some of the negative aspects. It's going to be a mix of things that were personal more to me, but hopefully some lessons can be learned from my experiences that help you. And then I'm also going to touch on more broad things that perhaps affected lots and lots of people and not just myself. Okay, let's start with a personal one, and it's something that I feel like I should know better, and maybe I learn this lesson every 5 years and I forget, but don't overextend yourself. That's something that I did. I think in terms of maybe social obligations that I had, there were just a lot going on. My mind was constantly on the next thing. It was worrying about what someone else thought. So as a result, it was really hard for me to be present all the time in that event and just trying to enjoy it for myself. Likewise, if you pack your schedule too much in general of just things to do and see, it might become a little too overwhelming. So the advice that I had given in previous videos was, it's okay to be selfish. Pick that one thing that you want to see that day and try to do it at all costs. I would be wise to listen to that myself in the future, and I definitely will make an effort to be more selfish in 2023. Because when you are in control of your time, more so than other people are in control of it, because there are fewer cooks in the kitchen, as the saying goes, right? It's just you controlling your time, and there's a lot less chances for things to go wrong when it's just you controlling that. Another thing that personally affected me, and I guess this was kind of a good thing, because my first 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, were actually really great. But the byproduct of that was there were a lot of things I was doing, a lot of events, a lot of energy spent, a lot of exertion just walking to and from places. So after 3 days, it was just kind of bound that they would eventually have a crash, right? So by Saturday, not only was I physically tired and spent, but also mentally a little bit drained as well. In addition to eating some bad salad at one of the restaurants, which kind of put me out for a few hours, most of Saturday I felt like I was away from all the events and all the people that I wanted to see. So that was definitely a drawback, but it goes back to my advice that you need to pace yourself. I need to learn to pace myself better in the beginning, so that I'm not completely spent by the time that Saturday comes along, so that I still have some energy to go around, and that I should just kind of spread out the things that I want to do. Also related to Saturday on a more broad scale, I wanted to definitely revisit on my recommendations for which day is the best after this year. I want to demote Saturday a little bit. The reason being is it is the most expensive single day ticket. This year it was $75, whereas if you had gotten the full weekend pass ahead of time, it was only $95. So you're already paying a lot, but what are you really getting on Saturday? So not really a whole lot unless you love waiting in lines. I heard there were pretty bad wait times to even try to get into the vendor hall and dealer hall. I heard a lot of people just got discouraged and never even made it, especially if that was their only day to try. The same problem extended to trying to get into any of the large panel rooms. Again, you spent lots of time just waiting and waiting. And the worst part about some of these events, and I'll touch on this later, that waiting was all for nothing in some cases, because once that room was full, you just weren't going to get in. It wasn't like the dealer hall where maybe, yes, you have to wait over an hour, but eventually you do get to go in. In these panels, you wait, but once that, cutoff has been made, it's tough luck for you no matter how long you may have been waiting there. So again, if you get a Saturday only badge, you really have to question, how much of the con can you experience? Because it's not just the events, the dealer hall, but even getting to and from places, it becomes a very frustrating experience. A lot of the sky bridges are pretty much clogged. I remember looking down from the Hilton top floors and I saw where the sky bridge was going into the Marriott. It wasn't moving. Like for a solid minute, those people were just stuck. I assume because at the far end in the Marriott, there was also a lot of congestion and choke points there as well. So again, even something as simple that you might take for granted as trying to get to and from one panel or one event to another, just trying to go to the other hotel to people watch, just becomes an event in itself. And it becomes very frustrating when it happens over and over and over, when you're stuck in a small space on a hot day. Makes it even more unbearable. So again, ask yourself what it is that you're getting on Saturday, because it may not be a lot of the big fun events. It may just be a lot of waiting time. Briefly to touch on Sunday, this is of course out of everyone's control, but the weather was pretty bad. I've had other years where there was a light drizzle, passing showers here and there. There was a pretty bad downpour for several hours on Sunday. I especially felt bad for the people who were waiting outside for the dealer hall, because as that tends to get, the lines wrap around maybe one or two sides of that massive building. So there are people outside, and when the rain starts pouring, they don't really have anywhere to go. And it's not like the line is going to move any faster to let people in. So I saw a lot of pictures where people, were just stuck outside for a very long time as they got drenched with not a whole lot to show for it. As for me, I was actually saving Sunday as the day that I would go and visit the arcade in the America's Mart Building 3. But again, because of the rain, unfortunately, I never made it there and never got to see it. I was more or less confined to the 3 hotels that were connected with the sky bridges. Pretty much everyone else had the same idea. So even though usually Sunday is a little bit better with the crowds being thinner, wasn't the case so much this year because everyone was just trying to get under a roof to stay away from the rain. Moving along, I think because this was the first con back, or maybe even the first really large event that a lot of people had attended, I think maybe just reacclimating to that, maybe the growing pain type year that this was, there were maybe a little bit more negative vibes and just kind of bad moods in general from people. I think, just spatial awareness, being frustrated for other reasons, things like that, being back around a lot of people in close proximity to, again, I think that may have been a challenge for some people. I want to briefly touch on a story of an encounter I had. And this is the pro tip here, a lesson to be learned. When you're going up and down an escalator, please keep moving. Don't stop when you get to the bottom or the top, because there's a lot of people behind you, and at the pace that the escalator is going, it just takes a second or two before it all comes crashing into a big mess. So I was going down the escalators, one of the little narrow one-lane ones in the Marriott, and there was two young people ahead of me. Now I know better, and I always leave about 1 or 2 spaces between myself and the next person for this very reason. And it ended up being irrelevant in this case, but anyways, and I was gently telling them, I said, keep moving, please, keep moving. I wasn't yelling enough, apparently. They didn't hear me, and they just stopped as soon as they got to the bottom to look at their phone. You can imagine what happened next. A little backlog pile of people running into me. I run into them. And then this person gets very aggressive, shoves me, and starts cursing at me. And I'm trying to just, process it all in shock, thinking, why do I even have to explain this? But I'm trying to. I said, it wasn't me. I said, do you see like the mass of people behind me? They hit me and I stumbled ahead into you two. And the other friend, being more cool-headed, understood that and apologized. For some reason, their friend couldn't let it go. They continued to scream obscenities at me, flicked me off. Their friend looked pretty embarrassed. At that point, I just kind of removed myself from that situation because I didn't want it to escalate into anything. No pun intended again. But, things like that probably happen all across because maybe people have just been frustrated over the last few years and, things might not be going their way, whatever that may be. I think the overall vibe was just a little more filled with frustrations this year than other years. All right, maybe onto the biggest but not last gripe. And I think this is kind of the linchpin. This is certainly what I will contact DragonCon about, because unless this is solved, I think a lot of bad things will continue to happen. And that is the staffing, right? The staffing with volunteers. I remember hearing in 2021, there were rumblings that they were very short on volunteers, as expected, because it was still more or less kind of a pandemic year, right? So people were very intimidated about going. And so there was a shortage from the pool that they could pull from volunteers. But because those attendance numbers were so low, I believe last year was only about 45,000, which is just about cut in half from previously in 2019. It was okay, right? Even with the staff shortage, it went okay because it just wasn't that crowded. There weren't that many people trying to get into panels or events. I remember I was able to get into one of the largest ballrooms in the Marriott, and I just walked right in. There was no line. So keeping that in mind, I think those same troubles continued in 2022. I don't think the con was able to get enough volunteers, and unfortunately, the attendance jumped, okay? The final numbers given for this year was 65,000 attendees. So you're already talking about an increase of 20,000 or nearly 50% from 2021. So a 50% increase in attendees, and I doubt there was that much of an improvement with volunteers, if at all. So you can already see where this is going. The event has grown far outside of what the staffing can accommodate. I think because of that, so many aspects of the con will suffer. I think the volunteers who are working may be running ragged, they may be frustrated, things like that because they're short staffed. I mean, anyone in the workforce, myself included, when your department or your organization is short staffed, everyone else has to work a little harder. And because of that, everyone else is going to be a little bit more afraid and on edge. And unfortunately, I think that's what happened to the remaining volunteers who were still trying to do their best. But at the end of the day, I think if you just don't have the numbers to run an event of this size, the experience for the attendees will suffer greatly. Not one to just whine and ramble despite the length of this video. What I would recommend and what I will recommend to the con is they need to reevaluate the business model of this convention, right? A great selling point has always been it is a con run by the volunteers, so by your fellow attendees for your fellow attendees, right? Not a lot of corporate sponsorships, things like that, but I think the world has changed a lot in the last few decades since the con originally formed in the late 80s. I think certainly with COVID happening, it fundamentally altered how a lot of businesses and how human interactions and behaviors occur. I think the con needs to take that into consideration. If the numbers are to keep going up next year, meanwhile, while the staffing shortage continues, it could lead to very disastrous type events happening more frequently in the future. So I think in reevaluating the whole business model, they need to really consider a few things, starting with how volunteers are treated. Currently, from my understanding on the website, you pay $20 for a heavily discounted badge your first year, and your subsequent years that you return as a volunteer is a free badge. While that may be a fine incentive, you might need to offer a little more, right? I'm not talking about necessarily financial ones because at that point, the con might have to start getting into filling out tax forms for everybody that's a volunteer. There are other things that they can do. Maybe give a certain amount of credit that they can use at the con merch store. Maybe give some other types of credits to be used in the vendor hall. Maybe give a streaming membership. So there are things in the scope of the con ecosystem that I think can be used to incentivize more people to sign up to be volunteers. Another thing is I think they can broadcast the whole recruitment process a little more. Let me actually give a backstory. I used to volunteer for I think 2 years on the DragonCon social media team. So to the former acquaintances that I had there, I will message you, directly because you are the people who can do something about it. But I think you can use your platform to recruit better. And people can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't recall seeing too many posts in the last year about trying to get more volunteers, right? And when they do discuss the meetings, because usually there's about 2 or 3 staff/volunteer meetings that occur throughout the year, those are pushed out last minute, if anything. Even as a local, when I'm only given a few hours notice that a meeting is happening downtown, that's very difficult to do. So I think maybe giving more of a heads up, right? Saying, hey, we have this staff meeting next week. Mark your calendars. We're looking for help. Come and see what it's about. Ask your questions. Get some behind the scenes news and updates for attending the event. Something as simple as that, done sporadically throughout the year, I think would go a long way. I think certainly you can also have things like raffles and contests and competitions for people who sign up as volunteers would be great as well. I do recall in the past, this is for anyone who's never done it, if you volunteer and you live locally, the con does treat you very well. They have these volunteer appreciation events at arcades and events, and you can go, just really have a good time with other volunteers. And I certainly enjoyed when I got to do that, and that's something that may not be known. I can't guarantee they still do it every year, especially, again, with safety precautions nowadays. But it's certainly something that I think maybe they could advertise, because the more help you can get, the better. Last but not least, of course, they need to revisit the notion of paying for more staff, right? They may already do it now. I'm not privy to that information. But from what I saw with badge wearing volunteers, what looked like security staff hired by the hotels, and then a few police officers standing in those areas to support that security team, those may not be enough going forward. The con may need to consider hiring just more dedicated people to handle things like that. Of course, that doesn't come for free. I understand that there may have to be a practice of raising badge prices, and as unpopular of an idea as that is, again, it may help to mitigate some of that growth from year to year. I can tell you there's no way the con is going to function properly if it goes from 65K this year to 85K next year. It's just going to be bad times. So maybe to slow some of that down, certainly consider a price increase. Certainly consider a cap on attendance more carefully. I know they actually sold out, and they announced this year with a very interesting picture and post, might I add, that I think confused a lot of people because they thought a guest was coming when he wasn't. But they did announce, I believe, just within a few days before the con started, that Thursday and Saturday only badges had been sold out. You could no longer get any more. So I understand they may already be considering some of these things. I'm not thinking that I'm some genius trying to reinvent the wheel or telling them what to do. I'm just trying to give something instead of just complaints. So, staffing shortages aside, I now want to turn my attention to two specific hotels. The first one is probably pretty expected if you've been on Facebook or Reddit at all. The Hilton Hotel got absolutely roasted online for a lot of the decisions they made this year. Word is that there was a new management team in place that was experiencing their first DragonCon, and let's just say they made a lot of poor decisions that, especially in hindsight, look bad, but even ahead of time, longtime attendees kind of saw it coming. So some of the things that they did, they decided to cut off some of the DJs in the back patio a little bit early, around 11. I don't think there were any DJs in the main lobby whatsoever, whereas they used to be there. They were also checking bags before anyone could go to the back patio to ensure people were not bringing outside alcohol. They were doing double badge checks for some reason, both as you were leaving the hotel, which absolutely makes no sense, as well as when you were coming into the hotel. So it really disrupted that flow of traffic for people trying to use the sky bridge on the second floor. Most notably, though, the biggest snafu on the part of the Hilton was the creation of the Iceberg Lounge event. This is held in Nikolai's roof, the topmost floor where the restaurant of the Hilton sits. In previous years, a crowd favorite event of the karaoke was held up there. People loved it. I've been up there myself. Good times all around with a bunch of happy people. Instead of keeping that, they decided to go for an obvious cash grab, and I mean very obvious. They decided to say the DJ would only be there in order for you to see the DJ and drink the exact same cocktails that you could have downstairs in the lobby. You would have to pay $120 just to get into the event. Maybe at a place like San Diego Comic Con, an exclusive after party with a high entrance fee makes sense. At DragonCon, the notion of an after party is a joke in and of itself because you don't have to go very far. Again, you can stay perfectly put downstairs in the Hilton and still have a good time. You can certainly hop over to the other hotels and have a good time pretty late into the night. So why would you pay a lot of money just to go up to an event that may or may not be that poppin', right? Certainly they're trying to advertise that this would be an exclusive event. And from the pictures that I saw on the first day or two, it looked like it completely bombed. In defense of the Hilton, I believe they did learn their lessons pretty early on in the weekend. There was a lot of backlash online, and their social media team did acknowledge that the feedback had been heard. They also listened to the gripes about people who said, hey, why did you take away all the seating that was downstairs? Usually under those escalators, there was a bunch of couches and seating arrangements that people had grown accustomed to over the years. They were removed early on in the weekend. And I think the outpour of backlash was heard because they were back the following day. Those seats were back there. So I give them kudos for that. I also spoke to a manager who actually recognized me and my comment. So it was a little awkward at first, but to their credit, they listened to me. They apologized for the snafu and actually invited me to the Iceberg Lounge at the hotel's expense, and actually informed me that now it was a cover charge of only $10 instead of $120. Unfortunately, by the time this decision had been made, I think the damage was already done because I did actually go up on Sunday night to check it out, right? Free is free. What I saw up there was a pretty sad sight. The entire seating area was mostly empty. There was a few patrons hanging out around the bar, and there was maybe 2 people on the actual dance floor. I felt really bad for the DJ there, and I felt even worse for him because the friends I had up there really enjoyed the music that he was playing. He played kind of throwback tunes, from the Warped Tour, that kind of music. To an older crowd like myself, those are pretty enjoyable, and it was a nice contrast to the musical choices made at the other dance parties around the con. My friends liked it so much they actually invited their friends, and there was actually a small crowd on the dance floor at one point, and the DJ actually was pretty thankful for that and told them, hey, this is the best crowd I've seen all weekend, which is pretty sad to hear. So again, as part of my feedback that I'll give to the Hilton, I would tell them to provide maybe a fun alternative, maybe different themed music, things like that that would entice people to come up there. Another hotel I briefly want to touch on is the Sheraton. I don't really interact there too much, and based on my experience this year, I will probably go there even less unless they make some changes. So my biggest gripe is everyone has to go to the Sheraton to pick up the badge, which is fine. What is not fine is some people, we have to wait outside the building because the lines are wrapped, or, after you get your badge, you still have to walk across, wait at the stoplight, cross the street until you walk away. The problem is there's a very loud speaker and DJ or whoever it is playing music there. And this is in the middle of the day on Thursday. I assure you, no one's trying to party at that point. We're just trying to get there early to get our badges, and we just want to get out of there and maybe enjoy the food trucks that are in the area. That's one of the main draws of the Sheraton. They're the only hotel who has a lot of local food trucks outside serving unique and often tastier foods than you can find elsewhere in the con. But instead of being able to enjoy the peace and quiet of finally having your badge in hand, looking at the program, you are greeted to some deafening levels of music. So I don't even have sensitive ears. I can only imagine how bad it is for people who do. It was shaking and rattling everything around me. I couldn't hear anything to even think about ordering a food order from the food trucks. So to the Sheraton, what I would tell you is please stop trying to make it a party type hotel, especially in the middle of the day when people are trying to get their badges, right? It's like the meme from Mean Girls. Stop trying to make it happen. It's not going to happen. People go to the 3 connected hotels for the party scene. So maybe you can offer an alternative, right? Something more low key. It's not that you can't have music playing over your speakers. Don't have it be loud thumping party music. Have something more chill, more laid back. Offer an alternative, something different from the other 3 that will draw a different crowd so that they can come to your hotel, your space, your lobbies, and maybe have your drinks, right? Come up with custom food and drinks. All the other hotels are doing it at this point. I don't know why the Sheraton is so far behind the rest. So please, please change that because no one wants their ears blown out as they're trying to pick up their badges. All that rambling that I've had about the drawbacks and negatives, you may think I had a terrible time. I did not. It's all about the context, right? The people who have the worst times are always going to be loud. And when I'm complaining about some of these things, I'm also giving suggestions in hopes that they can be improved upon. No event is ever perfect, but as long as the people behind their scenes are trying to make it better, I always applaud that. That said, there were plenty of good, great, amazing things that I encountered, and I want to go over some of them now. First, I was able to hit pretty much all of the checklist type things that I want to consider it to be a successful con. I was able to attend one of the late night dance parties. This was the open casket party on Friday night. More of a goth / industrial vibe to it. But nonetheless, it was a fun time when I got inside, and I only had to wait about 30 minutes in line before I got in. I was also able to make it to a small panel, no less about video and audio editing. Unfortunately, since this is so recent, I'm not going to be able to implement any new skills on this video, but hopefully positive changes to come in the future. But it's always fun to attend a small event when you're listening to some industry professionals give some insights. I certainly learned a lot from that panel. I was also able to walk around in some fun costumes. Some of the smaller, lesser known ones, I was just content that I got some recognition. And a more popular one from Stranger Things, I dressed up as Argyle, the pizza guy from season 4. I got a lot of recognition and praise for that, which really made my day. I was actually there with some friends who were also happened to be in Stranger Things costumes. Theirs were amazing with some really cool prop ideas. So I just had to stand there, and there were long periods where I couldn't even really move because, the people just kept coming with their cameras. It's really a great thing to experience. I used to have that a little more back in the day. I don't get it as much now, but it's always welcomed. It always feels good when you get some attention. There were also fun random events that you really just can't plan for or account for, but these often end up being some of the best moments at con because all I know, as I've said in the past, is that I know something great's going to happen. I just don't know what it is. And those happen. One instance, I was just trying to order from the Hilton bar downstairs, and I heard some commotion behind me. Lo and behold, the whole battalion of Spartans from 300 showed up. Um, they had some rehearsed choreographed sequences that they went through with the leader in front, pacing back and forth, marching out some orders. Everyone did a different little, poses, things like that. It was really great to see. And because I was already there, I was actually right on that front. Like there was a little circle of people forming around them, and I was right there. I had the absolute best angle for my pictures. And I literally didn't see it coming because I was just looking ahead at the bartender thinking of what to get, and it just appeared behind me. Likewise, I took my newbie friend up to the Pulse Loft Bar, which is a little one overlooking the main lobby. I just wanted to go up there for a change of scenery, look down at the crowd from above because it is a unique vantage point. They actually had some pretty good music playing up there, more party favorites and classics that everybody knew. And eventually the YMCA came on, and it's really cool to see about 100 people just kind of bust out into the dance. Everyone looked like they were having a good time. It wasn't overly packed. Random conga lines were happening. Some really cool, talented dancers were kind of having some dance offs in the middle. Overall, a great moment to walk into. Last but not least, I've always said that DragonCon is made by the attendees. It's the people that make it fun for others. One example I can give is the quest givers, who, if you go up to them, they give you a random task to do. Usually take a picture of blank, bring it back to them, and they give you a little prize. It just gives you something different to do at the con. Likewise, there's now a massive group for the swag and seek contingent of the con. My wife taking part in a lot of these, and I was able to witness, just how much joy people have when you're giving them a surprising ribbon or a little, a swag bag full of something that people had made, just little arts, craft, things like that. It's the people who put in the time and effort to make that to bring joy to other people. It's incredible to see. I really love seeing it in this one instance when she gave something to some kids, and you can see their faces just light up. They were like, oh my goodness, this is the coolest thing for them in that moment. And I'm sure their parents are having a ball too, because it's so simple. You're just giving someone a little piece of plastic, but the reaction that you get, the smiles that you get, I just love seeing moments like that. All right, on a personal level, I think I did a really good job of packing. Not only did we utilize a rollaway dolly so that we don't have to wait on the bellhops, that's a pro tip. Another thing we brought was a collapsible garbage bin with large garbage bags because, in hotels, they just have the little tins without a bag, and that trash is going to fill up within an hour. So that worked out really well. All of our snack packing was just the right amount, not too much. Everything was pretty much consumed by the end of the weekend, and it saved us a lot of trips. In fact, we never once had to go to the Peachtree Center food court. So not only am I saving time, but a lot of money by bringing your snacks and kind of fine-tuning them year to year to know what it is you tend to eat while you're there. Oh, and I can't forget, very useful to bring your own, little liquid soap container, because the hotels typically provide a small bar, and that gets very mushy, especially if you have a lot of people. So pro tip, definitely pack some liquid soap with a little pump handle. It will go a long way towards keeping all the hands clean and your little bath area clean as well. I know I griped about the weather and the rain on Sunday, but for Saturday morning, it was delightful. I felt really happy for all the people who were taking part in the parade or watching the parade from the streets. I looked at my phone and it said the weather was in the high 70s, no rain whatsoever. So I can only imagine how pleasant it was for everyone out there on Saturday morning. Okay, I said I didn't go to the food court at all. I also did not step into the Walk of Fame. I know a lot of people consider this to be a drawback. Every year it seems like there's complaints about the guest list. At least prior to the last minute cancellations, I actually thought the guest list this year was pretty good. But of course, the positive is you don't spend the money on the autographs and photo ops. And I took out 200 in cash this year. Bought a lot of other stuff that I'll touch on next. But in terms of cash, only 30 out of 200, and all that 30 actually went to tipping different staff members in the hotel. Okay, as for what I did buy, I always love to support artists and small vendors and shops. I saw an amazing array of them, as I always do, especially on that fourth floor of the America's Mart. That's where you'll find more of a concentrated collection of artists. I just love seeing their works on display. I bought some prints, art book, t-shirt, hat, some other trinkets. Also in the art show area, which is actually on the bottom floor of the Hyatt, not only is there kind of like a museum-like exhibit with pieces that you can bid on, there's also a concentration of artists there. And I honestly feel like the talent level there is even more just next level. It was just really amazing to see a lot of it. I actually caught the artist who made the hotel key cards, the art for that, as well as the artist who drew the badge for this year, and I was able to get it signed by both of them and have some brief conversations, and those are always great moments to have as well. Moving on to the cosplays, I can't tell you that it was like the most impressive year ever. Maybe, COVID, whatever, just caught up with a lot of people. Maybe they were just scaling down. Maybe I just wasn't out at the right time since I told you I missed most of Saturday. There were still incredible costumes, including made from some of the people that I know. There is also another type of costumes which I think I fall more into, and that's kind of the more creative slash funny ideas because I don't have the skills to make these amazing things. Every now and then I come up with something funny or witty. There was an equal amount of both that I really enjoyed. So that fun is always there to be discovered as well. I know I complained a lot about the wait times. It wasn't all bad. I was able to get my badge in about 45 minutes, which might sound bad, but compared to 2+ hours in the past, still not the worst thing. And in terms of the dealer hall, I decided to go on Friday. And even though the line was wrapped around two sides of the building, snaked over, so really four sides, it wasn't as daunting as it initially seemed because it was moving the whole time. And I was actually inside within 30 minutes. And thankfully, because of that, I was able to explore for several hours pretty much every floor of the America's Mart, and I had a really good time. I also heard that pretty much there was almost no wait if you went on Monday, so definitely consider that in the future years. I've done that myself, and either Friday or Monday tends to be the best times to try to get into the dealer hall. Last but not least, I had 7 people come up to me and recognize me from this YouTube page, which was quite amazing because I remember telling my wife that even if one person recognized me, it would make my day. Several people did, a handful, you could even say. So I really thank everyone who approached me to say hello. It was really special. I especially want to give a shout out to Justin Henton, who makes incredible, con videos, and I'll link him, down below. Not that he needs a link from me, because you'll see in the number of views that he gets, he's quite popular and successful. But a very nice guy, just stopped to talk to me for a few minutes on 2 occasions. Keep a lookout for his videos because I'm certainly going to keep a lookout. This guy might appear in it briefly. Who knows? Regardless, it was nice to see you. It was nice to see everyone else who said hi to me. And overall, I would actually give the con a 7 out of 10 for me, right? So a 5 out of 10 is a very average event, could go either way. There were still lots of amazing moments and fun memories that I had. to push it into the good range. Not quite great and not quite spectacular. And that's okay, because this is my 14th con. Not every single one of them is going to be top-notch amazing, right? After you go so many times, there can only be so many good ones before one has to be at least kind of a low point. And even the worst DragonCon, I don't think this is the one, but even the worst DragonCon is still a great time. So even a not so great one like this one, I still really enjoyed my weekend. That said, I certainly have lessons to take with me into 2023 so that I have a better one. I hope you guys have learned a thing or two as well in this incredibly long rant of a video. Thank you if you somehow made it to the end. And again, I will see you next time with more useful videos and information for DragonCon 2023. Thank you again for watching, and I will catch you then.